Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The bullies didn't know he was a martial arts champion. Every morning at 5:30 p.m., while the city of Brookston still slept under the first warm breaths of dawn, Ethan Rivers crossed the gates of the Lincoln High School. The sky was often still starry, the streetlights flickered faintly, and the streets were deserted. Only the rustling of leaves and the whisper of the wind accompanied his steps. He didn't need an alarm clock. His body, trained by years of martial discipline, worked like clockwork. He always walked with the same regularity, the same straight but relaxed posture, broom in hand, without ever making unnecessary noise. His uniform was not an official one, but a mixture of modest clothes, worn jeans, a gray shirt buttoned up to the collar, and an old black cape on his salt and pepper hair. He had no watch or phone. Just his gestures, timed with the precision of a master. Nobody knew much about him. He didn't have a social media profile. He didn't attend school meetings. He never went to sporting events or end-of-year parties. He ate alone, in a small room near the maintenance room. He left after sunset, as quietly as he had arrived. Rumors, of course, had started to circulate. Some students claimed that he lived alone in a rusty caravan, set back in the woods. They said he had no television or radio, that he slept on a simple mattress rolled up on the floor, between piles of old books. Others said that he had been in prison, that he had killed someone, or that he had fled a past heavy with secrets. A substitute teacher once even described him as a Zen monk who fell into the wrong century. But what everyone knew was that he was doing his work perfectly. The hallways were always spotless. The restrooms smelled of fresh lemon. Faulty lights were changed before anyone asked. Squeaky locks became silent overnight. It seemed guessed the school's needs before they even existed. We called it among students Ghost Janitor, the Ghost Janitor. Not out of malice, but because he appeared and disappeared silently, like a breath of air. That no one suspected, is that before this shadowy life, Ethan Rivers was one of America's most formidable martial arts fighters. Champion d'Aikido, of karate, holder of a 3rd Dan black belt, he had participated in international competitions, won trophies, trained students in several states. At 25, he had been selected to represent the United States at the Pan American Games. He was adored in martial arts circles for his fluid, almost dance-like style and his ability to disarm an opponent without brutality. But all this had been wiped out in one night. A car accident. A wet road. A speeding van. Its parents, sitting beside him, had not survived. Ethan had been hospitalized for months, his body broken, his soul even more so. He had never set foot on a tatami mat again. He had left the world without warning, leaving behind medals, titles, and a reputation. And now he was sweeping a high school. On the other side of the mirror, another man reigned, a teenager, in reality, but already accustomed to impose one's will. Logan Marshall, 17 years old, blonde, athletic, heir to a local real estate empire, walked into the school like aching sun in his palace. He was popular, charismatic, cunning. But he had one flaw, the obsession with power, the need to control, to be feared. With his two sidekicks, Chad Benson, the tall, nervous, close-cropped man, and Tyler Green, the sarcastic smooth talker, he formed a trio of little tyrants. They were not brutes in appearance. They knew stay within limits, just enough to avoid punishment. A disguised insult, a sideways gesture, a threatening look, it was subtle but continuous harassment. And their favorite target was Ethan. They often crossed paths with him in the corridors, especially at the end of the day when the staff were leaving. They did it on purpose. Knock over their water bottles, throw their greasy papers on the ground, or off-block his way without a word. Chad had even once launched a chewing gum machete at his feet. "So, you wasted your life only to end up with a mop in your hand?" Logan said with a smirk. "Hey, old broom, do you want me to teach you how to mop the floor properly?" Tyler said ironically. Ethan never answered. He barely looked at them. He just cleaned. Gently. Without anger. But this disorienting calm, this total lack of reaction, This almost sacred silence that Ethan wore inside him like armor aroused Logan's frustration, who wanted an answer. He wanted to see Ethan get angry, agitated, protest. He wanted to dominate him. More, he never got anything from it. Not yet. It was a Friday evening in late autumn, and a dry wind swept the dead leaves around Lincoln High School. The school was almost empty. The last buses had left the parking lot, carrying in their wake the voices, the laughter, and the bustle of the day. Only the gymnasium remained open for an optional sports activity, an impromptu basketball training session in which a few students participated. Among them, Logan Marshall, Chad Benson, and Tyler Green were still hanging around, idle, arrogant, ready to find a new entertainment. It was when they left the locker room that they came across Ethan Rivers, mopping the gymnasium floor. He swept in perfect lines, as if tracing an invisible pattern on the shiny floor, focused, calm, indifferent to their presence. Chad was the first to break the silence. "Well, our little ninja," he said mockingly, a can in his hand. Logan followed him, arms crossed, a smirk on his face. "I have an idea," he said, his eyes sparkling with unhealthy pleasure. "How about a little reflex test? Just to see what our Zen master can do." "He moves slowly," Tyler replied. "I think he's asleep standing up, that old man." Without warning, Tyler took a step forward and threw an empty plastic bottle in Ethan's direction, with all his might. The object sliced through the air, spinning, but before it even hit the ground, a hand appears, lightning fast. Ethan grabbed it in midair. With a single, clear gesture. Without any apparent effort. The silence was brutal. The three boys remained frozen, mouths half open. They had just seen something they didn't understand. Something that had nothing to do with the tired man they thought they knew. Ethan slowly raised his head. His gaze, always shifty until then, met for the first time that of Logan, straight, stable, deep. "Please," he said in a calm but firm tone, "don't play with it." "Oh, he's talking," Logan mocked, "look at that. It seems like the old broom has a voice." Then, without warning his friends, Logan rushed forward, trying to push him with your shoulder, as he would have done with any kid in the hallways. But what he doesn't see is Ethan's slight pivot, moving the right foot backward, transferring weight, and the fluid movement, precise, surgical. In a split second, Logan found himself on his knees, unbalanced by a rotation of the arm, the palm pressed against his own chest, immobilized without pain but without escape. Chad yelled and tried to grab Ethan from behind. Big mistake. In one fluid gesture, Ethan used the boy's own momentum against him, a shift of the hip, a twist of the arm, and Chad crashed softly to the ground, surprised, unharmed but humiliated. Tyler took a step back. His lips were trembling. "What was that?" he shouted, his voice high-pitched. Ethan said nothing for a moment. Then he sighed, long, as if he regretted having had to act. He looked at them, not with anger, but with a deep weariness. You should never use force, when you don't know what the other person has mastered. He bent down, picked up his broom from the wall, calmly put the bottle back in a bin, and left without another word, leaving the three boys frozen in the middle of the gym, like statues of shame. What Logan and his friends were unaware, it's just a security camera fixed in the corner of the gymnasium had all filmed. And what they didn't anticipate was that a surveillance officer, fascinated by the scene, shared the video anonymously in the school's internal network. The Monday morning, the video was the tour of the establishment. Within an hour, it had been uploaded to students' phones, shared on TikTok and YouTube with titles like, "The janitor takes down 3 high school students in less than 10 seconds. Ghost janitor equals black belt." The reactions were immediate. "Is that him? That old janitor? It looks like a scene from a kung fu movie. I saw him cleaning the cafeteria yesterday. The teachers were talking about it in the staff room. The students were whispering in the hallways." The administration no longer knew how to react. The day after, Mr. Harper, the high school principal, summoned Ethan into his office. He was a large, kindly man with a tone of gentle authority. Ethan walked in, his gaze calm as always. Mr. Rivers, sit down. He played a video on his screen. Ethan's movements were in slow motion, majestic, almost unreal. Why did you never tell us who you were? Harper asked, arms crossed. There was silence. Then Ethan finally looked up. Because my past broke me. He paused. I didn't want to be a hero anymore. I just wanted to be useful. Harper was silent for a moment. His eyes moistened slightly. What if you still were, without knowing it? The management, impressed by Ethan's quiet mastery and overwhelmed by the students' positive reactions, officially offered him the opportunity to create a martial arts and self-defense club after class. Ethan remained silent for a long moment. His gaze wandered toward the windows of the principal's office, where the sun was slowly setting, tinting the sky orange and purple. Memories came flooding back, the tatami mat, the battle cries, the medals, but also the accident, the pain, the months in the hospital, the oblivion. I don't know if I'm still that man, he said softly. What if you had become someone else, but even stronger, Mr. Harper replied sincerely. Finally, Ethan agreed, but only one condition. This dojo will not be a place to feed egos. It will be open to everyone, without exception. Bullied students, young people who have lost their way, those with doubts, and even former bullies, if they show a genuine desire to change. The director nodded respectfully. Thus was born the evening dojo, installed in the old gymnasium. There were carpets, mirrors, and a small altar of rough wood with a hand-carved phrase. Self-control is the beginning of courage. Word of mouth did the rest. Soon, a dozen students came to sign up, Maya, who often cried alone in the bathroom. Jamal, expelled 3 times for fighting. Nina, mocked for her figure. And others. More Logan, he stayed away. Humiliated by his defeat, he withdrew. He had lost his power over others. Chad and Tyler had been suspended temporarily. His father, furious, took away his car and cut off his money. At home, he was nothing more than a disgrace. For weeks he watched from afar. Until rainy Tuesday, where he silently walked through the dojo door. The other students stopped, worried. Ethan, however, simply continued to tie his belt. Balbutia Logan, that I'm not here for revenge. I want to learn. Not to fight. To understand what you understood, what I always missed. Ethan stared at him. For a long time. His gaze was neither hard nor tender. Just, true. So you're ready. But know that the road will be harder for you. Not because of the blows. Because of your pride. You'll have to break it every day. Like a rock. Until you become humble. Logan nodded. He became the most diligent student in the dojo. 2 years later, the dojo Rivers Way officially opened its doors, with a dedicated premises, partly financed by the town hall, anonymous donations, and a foundation now headed by a certain Logan Marshall, who became an ambassador for nonviolence in public schools. The dojo was not just about learning how to strike or defend oneself. It also studied philosophy of body and mind, respect, breathing, the right words. Some young people even found a vocation there. Maya, the former bullied student, became an instructor for the younger ones. Jamal obtained a university scholarship thanks to the discipline he had acquired. As for Ethan, he never left his discreet role. He refused interviews. He never accepted a salary for the dojo. Every morning, before opening, we could see him enter the room alone, broom in hand, in silence. He swept the tatami for a long time, in a circle, like a ritual. Why are you doing this? A student asked him one day. Not out of need. Out of respect. For the place. For peace. For what we become here. And when the young people doubted, compared themselves, argued, Ethan always told them. True strength doesn't roar. It watches. It teaches. It protects. Often, we would encounter former students, now adults, returning discreetly. Some would rest their foreheads on the tatami mats, others would place a flower near the altar. No words were necessary. Ethan Rivers, once broken, now invisible, had given back to hundreds of young people what he himself thought he had lost: dignity, mastery, inner peace. And he never had to fight again.